The morning light crept slowly through the dusty curtains of a small house on Elm Street. Inside, an old man sat by the window, staring at the rising sun as if it were an old friend. His name was Henry Walker, 85 years old, thin as a shadow, dressed in a shirt that had once been white but now carried the soft tint of time. On the table in front of him were two coffee cups, one full, one empty. Every morning, it was the same. He poured the coffee carefully, his hands trembling, the smell filling the room like a memory. Then he smiled, faintly, painfully, and said softly, "Morning, Maggie." The empty chair across from him stayed silent, but Henry didn't seem to notice. He reached for an old photo frame on the table, a woman with kind eyes and silver hair, smiling the way only she could. Margaret Walker. They'd been married 60 years. Now she was gone. And yet, somehow, she was still there, in the smell of coffee, in the sunlight that touched her side of the table, in the quiet creak of the floor where she used to stand. Henry took a sip. It was bitter. He liked it that way. But it didn't taste the same. Nothing had since the day she left. He looked at the small tin box on the counter, a box of old coins, carefully saved over months. Today, he told himself, would be the day. He'd go back to Miller's Café, the little place on Main Street where they'd gone every Sunday morning for 40 years. He hadn't been there since the funeral. Henry put on his old brown coat, patched at the elbows, and his cap that still smelled faintly of her perfume. He looked in the mirror. His eyes were tired, but still kind. He straightened his collar. "Don't be late, Maggie," he whispered. And for a moment, just a moment, he thought he heard her laugh, the one that always sounded like summer rain. With slow, careful steps, he locked the door and started down the street, the tin box of coins rattling softly in his pocket. The sound of love that hadn't ended, only changed its shape. Henry's footsteps echoed softly on the cracked sidewalk as he approached Miller's Café. The old bell above the door jingled, a sound he remembered from decades ago, a melody that used to mean comfort, warmth, and shared mornings with Margaret. But today, the café looked different. The windows were clean, the tables shiny, and the smell of freshly ground coffee mingled with the faint scent of plastic furniture polish. Young people tapped away on laptops. Earbuds glimmered in their ears. The world had changed, but this café had stayed the same, and yet, not the same at all. Henry stepped in slowly. He could feel eyes on him immediately. He wasn't invisible. Not here, not anymore. In front of the counter, a line of customers buzzed with impatience. A teenage girl scrolled on her phone. A businessman drummed his fingers on the counter, muttering under his breath. Henry shuffled to the end of the line, clutching his tin box of coins tightly. The cashier behind the counter, Melissa, barely looked up. She was in her early 20s, wearing a crisp apron, hair tied back, and an expression that said she'd rather be anywhere else. Next, she barked, not unkindly, but with an impatience that stung. Henry stepped forward. "Good morning. I'd like a small coffee, please. And, a toasted sandwich." Melissa glanced at him, her eyes flicking to his hands. The coins rattled softly as Henry began counting them on the counter, one by one. It was slow, careful, trembling. The people in line whispered, "Why is he taking so long? Is he paying with coins? Come on, dude, step aside." Henry's fingers shook more with each coin. He bit his lip, trying not to cry. Every coin reminded him of Margaret, of a life carefully counted, carefully saved, a life spent together. Each coin was a little memory, a little love he was offering to a world that seemed to have forgotten the value of patience. Melissa sighed audibly, tapping her pen against the counter. "Sir, could you maybe hurry it up?" The line grew restless. Phones came out. Eyes rolled. Henry's chest tightened. He wanted to vanish, to disappear into the warmth of the memory of Margaret. He whispered softly to himself, just coffee, Maggie." Suddenly, a young man stepped forward from the line. Lucas, 25, kind eyes, calm presence. He reached over and gently touched Henry's shoulder. "Hey, let me help you with that." "It's okay." Melissa stared, caught between irritation and confusion. The line of customers quieted slightly, watching. Lucas began counting the coins with Henry, speaking softly. "There we go. Just a few more. Almost done." Henry looked up at Lucas. His eyes filled with tears, and he whispered, "Thank you, you don't know what this means." Lucas smiled, not with pity, but with respect. "I think I have an idea." You've loved someone a long time, haven't you? Henry nodded. 60 years. And I still do. Every morning, I come here for her. The cafe was silent. Even Melissa stopped fidgeting. The world slowed down. For just a moment, the past and present collided, and everyone could see, really see, an 85-year-old man, a lifetime of love, and the small act of paying for a cup of coffee with trembling hands. Lucas finished counting the coins. There, you're all set. Henry clutched the cup like it was the most precious thing he had. Thank you so much. Melissa looked at him differently now. Something in her expression softened. The line behind them moved quietly, no one complaining anymore. Henry took his cup, found a small table in the corner, and sat down. He held the cup in both hands, inhaling the aroma as if it were a bridge back to Margaret. Lucas sat across from him, not saying a word, letting Henry have this moment. The bell above the cafe door jingled again as more customers arrived, but Henry barely noticed. He was back in his memory, in a life that hadn't really ended, at least not yet. Henry took a deep breath, cradling the warm cup of coffee between his trembling hands. He looked across the table at Lucas, who waited patiently, not interrupting, not judging. There was something in the young man's calm presence that made Henry feel safe enough to speak, to finally unburden himself. You know, Henry began softly. This isn't just coffee. It's a promise. Lucas leaned in slightly. A promise. Henry nodded, his eyes glistening. 60 years ago, my wife, Margaret, she loved this cafe. Every Sunday morning, we'd come here. 1 cup each, even if we didn't drink it all. She said it was the smell, the chatter, the little moments, it reminded her of life. He paused, staring at the empty chair across from him. After she passed, I couldn't come back. I couldn't sit here alone, not without her. But today I brought the coins. Every one of them is for her. Every coin has a memory attached. Some from her birthday, some from our travels, all saved carefully. This is my way of remembering her and keeping her with me. Lucas's eyes softened. You've carried all of that in your pocket? Henry chuckled quietly, though it was tinged with sadness. Every day, every morning. It's heavy sometimes, but it's worth it. The cafe seemed to fade away around them. The tapping of keyboards, the clinking of cups, the chatter of impatient customers. All of it became a distant hum. Henry continued. You see, she used to say, Henry, when you can smile again, even without me, you'll have found peace. I haven't smiled much since she left, but today I feel her here. Lucas reached across the table and gently placed his hand over Henry's. She's still with you, Henry, and she always will be. You didn't forget her, and you never will. That's what matters. Henry smiled, a small, trembling smile, and took a sip of his coffee. The warmth spread through him, and for the first time in 2 years, he felt connected. Not just to Margaret, but to the world around him, even if only a little. Thank you for helping me today, Henry whispered. You didn't have to. Lucas shrugged gently. Sometimes, helping someone is the only right thing to do. Henry nodded, letting the words sink in. Outside, sunlight danced through the cafe windows, painting the table in golden light. Inside, an old man and a young stranger shared a quiet moment of understanding, a bridge between the past and the present, between grief and hope, between loss and love. It started with a quiet click of a phone camera. A young woman sitting in the corner of Miller's Cafe had been watching Henry and Lucas. She couldn't look away. Something about the frail old man counting his coins, so careful, so deliberate, touched her. She raised her phone and began recording. Not to mock, not to gossip, but because she felt the moment was important, fragile, and beautiful. The video was short. Just Henry placing a coin, the tremble in his hands, Lucas gently helping him, the coffee cup finally in front of him. The caption she typed was simple. 85-year-old man humiliated for paying with coins. But wait until you see what happens next. Within hours, the video was shared, retweeted, reposted. Millions of people clicked play. And everywhere, people felt something they hadn't felt in a long time. Empathy. Back in the cafe, Henry had no idea. He sipped his coffee quietly, talking softly to Lucas. Melissa, the cashier, came over with a clipboard, trying to seem composed, but her hands trembled. The video had already started circulating on her phone, the part where she had sighed, the impatient taps, the customers rolling their eyes. Suddenly, The cafe was filled with notifications. Phones buzzed. The world outside was paying attention, not just to Henry's small act, but to how easily people could forget kindness. Comments poured in. This is heartbreaking. How can anyone be so cruel to an old man? Where is this cafe? I want to support him. And then came the backlash. Miller's cafe became the center of a moral storm. Melissa's sigh, the impatient glance, the eye rolls, all went viral. Within a day, the cafe received emails, calls, and messages. People demanded accountability. Some offered support to Henry. Some sent him coins and letters of encouragement. Lucas watched Henry quietly. Do you know what's happening? He asked. Henry shook his head. No, I came for coffee. That's all. It's everywhere now. Millions of people are watching. They see what we saw. Henry's hands shook, not from cold this time, but from the weight of sudden attention. He didn't want fame. He didn't want sympathy. He wanted Margaret. But there was a small comfort in knowing that people were seeing the truth, that small acts mattered, that patience, care, and love still existed. Lucas leaned back, thinking, maybe this would change something. Maybe people would remember, just for a moment, that every life is worthy of respect. And somewhere online, people laughed, cried, and shared, not just a story of coins and coffee, but of humanity. The next morning, Henry returned to Miller's cafe, a little earlier than usual. The streets were quiet, the sunlight soft, and the air carried that crisp hint of fall. He hadn't slept much. The video, the messages, the attention, it all felt unreal, almost intrusive. As he pushed open the door, the familiar bell jingled, but this time it sounded different. The cafe was still, almost too still. The hum of chatter was gone, replaced by the weight of expectation. Melissa was behind the counter. Her face was pale, eyes avoiding his. Good morning, Henry, she said softly. Her voice was different, quieter, humbler. The impatience that had filled the air yesterday was gone, replaced by a hesitant remorse. Henry nodded, not speaking. Words felt unnecessary. The customers were few, whispering to each other, looking at him with curiosity, awe, and, in some cases, guilt. Henry felt a strange mixture of embarrassment and sorrow. He hadn't asked for this. He hadn't wanted it. Lucas arrived shortly after, holding 2 steaming cups of coffee. I thought you might like company, he said gently. Henry smiled faintly. Thank you. I didn't expect any of this. The cafe manager emerged from the back, a serious expression on his face. Henry, I want to apologize, he said. No one should be treated the way you were treated. Your coffee, on the house, anytime you want. Henry's eyes filled with tears, but he nodded, saying nothing. Words were inadequate. Outside, people began leaving notes, small coins, and flowers on the cafe's doorstep. The video had sparked something larger than coffee or coins, a reminder of respect, dignity, and the fragility of old age. Yet Henry felt a quiet ache. The attention, the kindness, it couldn't replace what he had truly lost. Margaret's laughter, her warmth, the ordinary mornings they'd spent together. He sipped his coffee slowly, letting the warmth fill the spaces where grief had settled. Lucas sat beside him, watching quietly, understanding that some things, even viral moments, could never capture the full story of love and loss. For a while, there was silence. But in that silence, Henry felt a connection. A reminder that even in a world that could be harsh and impatient, small acts of kindness could ripple outward, touching lives, changing perspectives, and honoring memory. A week passed. Henry didn't return to Miller's cafe every day this time. The attention, the people, the noise of the viral video, it was too much. He preferred quiet mornings, the small rituals that reminded him of Margaret, and the gentle comfort of his own memories. That afternoon, he sat at his kitchen table, the sunlight falling across the tin box of coins. Next to it lay a folded piece of stationery, the one Margaret had always loved, soft cream paper with faint gold edges. Henry picked up a pen, his hand trembling. Not from age, but from the weight of what he needed to say. Dear Maggie, he began, I brought the coins back. Every single one. They served their purpose, to honor you, to remember you, and to carry a piece of you with me. I hope you can forgive me for the times I didn't come here, for the times I was too lost in grief to see the small joys around me. Today I feel peace, not because people watched or because strangers showed kindness, but because I finally let go, even if only a little. I will always love you, and I will always remember our mornings together, the taste of coffee, and the sound of your laughter. Yours forever, Henry. He folded the letter carefully, placing it atop the tin box. Then, he added one last coin, glinting softly in the afternoon light. The next morning, Henry walked slowly to Miller's cafe. He didn't count the coins this time. He didn't need to. He left the tin box and the letter on the small corner table, the same one where he had sat with Lucas. Before leaving, he whispered softly to the empty chair across from him. "Here's your coffee, Maggie. I hope you like it." He walked out into the street, the air crisp and bright, carrying a sense of quiet closure. Later, Lucas returned to the cafe. He found the box and the letter. Reading Henry's words, he felt tears prick his eyes. The letter wasn't just for Margaret. It was for anyone who had ever loved and lost, who had struggled to remember that life, in all its small moments, was still worth honoring. Henry never returned to the cafe, but in that small space, his story lingered. In the coffee cup, in the tin box, in the simple act of counting coins, he had left a legacy of love, patience, and dignity. And somewhere, maybe in the memory of Margaret, or in the hearts of those who had watched, his peace quietly settled.